Howdy folks, the purpose of this video is to give an introduction into Saturn and Moloch symbolism, the point of it, and who or what is behind it. Saturn was known in Roman mythology as the god of agriculture and god of the harvest. He was often depicted as carrying a sickle in his hand, which was later turned into the scythe. Saturn was the main god worshipped by the peoples of Rome, and the Roman Catholic Church retains a lot of the Saturn worship in its ritual. Saturn has been known by many names, for most religions are based on retellings of previous stories. A few of Saturn's earlier names are Kronos by the Greeks, Shani in the Hindu religion, and Ninib in Babylon, who is also called god of war and god of the harvest.
What are you? Oh, I have so many names. See, call me Dad.
Saturn was also known as Father Time as he rules over time and death. In astrology, he is associated with principles of limitation, restrictions, boundaries, and practicality. Saturn governs ambitions, career, authority, and hierarchy in conforming social structures. In Roman mythology, it was prophesied that one day Saturn would lose power when one of his children would depose him. To prevent this from happening, each time Ops, his sister and wife, delivered a child, Saturn would immediately devour it. In other words, Saturn eats babies. This shows a connection between Saturn and Moloch, the god of sacrifice, and known as father of all the gods. While Saturn is not Moloch, Saturn is a creation of Moloch, for Moloch is the being of Ormethian, or the god of service to self-beings. These are the people who worship the physical universe. Moloch is where what we would call evil originates from.
Mom! Dad! It's evil! Don't touch it!
Similar to Saturn, Moloch goes by many names, some including El, Baal, Baal, Dagon, and Asura. The force of Moloch is extremely wise and cunning, which is why it is symbolized as the wise owl and the knowledgeable bull. The owl you will recognize if you are familiar with the Bohemian Grove, and the bull symbolism goes way back, depicting the god as a bull or half bull, half man. From these symbols you will see where they got the idea of the devil from. You probably have recognized the hand sign for the bull because those in the elite understand exactly what it represents and flash the hand sign on occasion. This goes to show that behind the leaders of the world pretending to war with each other, there's a lot more going on that you don't see or read about. Moloch is the god of sacrifice, and sacrifice by way of fire is one method of worship. People have sacrificed animals and people, even children and babies, to this entity. In fact, the concept of the burning bush from the book of Exodus in the Old Testament is a direct reference to Moloch. Moloch is known as the consumer and represents the material world. Isn't it funny that those who buy into material obsession are also known as consumers? This is not a coincidence. One of the most powerful symbols of Moloch is the obelisk, also known as the phallus of the gods or the phallus of the bull, since it represents a bull's penis. Obelisks are a symbol that are everywhere, going back from today in modern America all the way back to Egypt and most likely before. When you begin to understand language and how words are put together, you find out that Moloch symbolism is very apparent in language as well. Anyways, back to Saturn. By following the symbolism, we find out that Saturn is the ruler of this planet, and we, the human race, are the harvest. Having a look at the symbol for Saturn the god, we see the sickle or the scythe and the cross. Taking these two signs apart, we have the sickle representing the harvest, and here we have the cross. The reason the cross is so important to Christianity is not because in the Bible the sun god was nailed to it. The cross represents Saturn and has been since the beginning. They just needed a reason to flash it everywhere.
A lot of Christians wear crosses around their necks. Do you think when Jesus comes back, he ever wants to see a fucking cross? It's kind of like going up to Jackie Onassis with a little sniper rifle pendant, you know. Hey, Jackie, just thinking of John. We loved him.
Understanding this symbolism, we can see where so many of the symbols we see day to day originate, from the Knights Templar to the Red Cross to many different company logos and industries. One of the most basic and easiest possible symbols to make just happens to represent Saturn. This is by design. Another symbol for Saturn is the cube, oftentimes a black cube, for the color of Saturn is black. One of the most important symbols of the cube is Mecca, where the Muslims make their Hajj, for their god is the same god Saturn as it is with all the other mainstream religions. So what's so special about this symbol, the cube? One thing the cube represents is this third-dimensional world we're in, length, width, and height. It represents the 3D box we're living in, and Saturn is that box. And here we have the sigil of Saturn, the planet. Many practicing Satanists believe that wearing the sigil of Saturn utilizes and attracts Saturn's planetary vibrations to the wearer. Another symbol we can get from this is the logo of Freemasonry. This is just one example of how two seemingly different groups can be based on the same information and understandings. Getting back to the symbols of the sickle and the scythe, both of these symbols represent the harvest, but in addition they both represent an elliptical or orbital pattern attributing to the rings of Saturn. The ringed planet symbolism is everywhere. You can't hardly browse the internet, watch the TV, or even drive down the street without seeing these symbols flashing in front of you. Have a look for yourself and you will see that many of these symbols are very similar to each other, and most are depicting exactly the same thing in different ways or different angles.
Try explaining the six-sided vortex at the North Pole.
Saturn has a hexagon. It's some kind of a wave, but it's a permanent wave. It's been there since Voyager discovered it back in 1980.
So located on the North Pole of the planet is a hexagon. This could be the reason why so many companies use a hexagon for their logo. In addition, the hexagon is a 2D representation of a 3D cube, and can also be the reason for the importance of the Star of David. But wait, there's more!
The South Pole has something that looks very much like a hurricane eye, except the clouds are 5 times the height of the eye wall around a terrestrial hurricane.
So it's kind of a window into the depths of Saturn, showing us just how dynamic the planet really is.
Aha, so there's the Eye of Saturn. I'm sure most of you know how much all-seeing eye symbolism there is. We're told that the all-seeing eye goes back to Horus in Egypt, but I think it's quite possible that it's just another reference to Saturn. Okay, with all this Saturn symbolism brings up a very important question. What is the point of all this? So by following the symbolism, we can see that God of the mainstream religions, be it Saturn, Jehovah, Yahweh, Satan, Kronos, Ninib, Shani, and then Moloch, El, Baal, Dagon, and Asura, it doesn't matter what name is given to them. They all represent the same two forces, Saturn and Moloch. But this has to have been done for a reason. Energy flows where focus goes. With the understanding that we humans are energy input-outputters, we can see that the point of worship is to give one's energy away to whatever is being focused on. If you can picture how many people are worshiping their God every single day, be it through religion or through material goods and desires, then you'll see that this is a lot of energy indeed. If all these gods represent Saturn, and Saturn the god represents the planet itself, then all of this energy would be going to Saturn. What is so important about Saturn, and what does it have to do with us? And why does it require all this energy?
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window, or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
Perhaps Saturn is that matrix, that machine or device creating and manipulating our multiple reality time loop we're living in that seems to be so real.
I wrote out these dreams in novel after novel, story after story, to name 2 in which this prior ugly present obtained most clearly. I cite The Man in the High Castle and my 1974 novel about the U.S. as a police state, called Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. I'm going to be very candid with you. I wrote both novels based on fragmentary residual memories of such a horrid slave state world. People claim to remember past lives. I claim to remember a different, very different present life. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I am willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. we would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
What kind of a machine could do these things?
A machine with the ability to turn energy into matter, guided by thought waves. It would have a very complex memory bank, be extremely sophisticated.
Like a computer, only much more. Could the machine that maintains the environment in this immediate area be kept in this house?
I think not. A device capable of keeping out this planet's natural atmosphere would be immense.
Good, I agree.
If this is true that Saturn is a machine, it also makes sense that it would need some type of energy source. Perhaps all of these people who think they're worshipping some god who loves them are instead feeding their own mind prison and keeping themselves trapped in it. So they are unknowingly giving their energy to the machine and its caretakers, who are usually referred to as them. So who is them?
In a time long past, so long past that even the grandmothers of our grandmothers were not yet born, the trees were forever in fruit, the animals lived in perfect harmony, and the little agouti played fearlessly with the beard of the jaguar. For the Hindus, this was the Krita Yuga, or perfect age. The Iranians call it the age of the brilliant Yima. The Chinese, the age of perfect virtue. The Danish, peace of Frodi. It was paradise, the Garden of Eden. And the memory dates to the first expressions of civilization. According to ancient Greek poets, philosophers, and historians, the present age is just a shadow of the former epoch called the Golden Age of Kronos. But who was this ancient god, Kronos? All Greek astronomical traditions agreed that Kronos was the planet Saturn. Our own name for the planets came from the Romans. In unison, Roman poets and historians insisted that in a former time Saturn had ruled as a god-king, producing a paradise on earth. It would be almost impossible to overstate the power of this memory among the different cultures. For the Babylonians, the Hebrews, and the Greeks, the most sacred day of the week was the Sabbath, a ritual remembrance of the lost epoch. And in each of these cultures, this holiest day was the day of Saturn, the Latin Saturnidis, or Saturn's Day, the Celtic day of Ceter, our Saturday. But the Golden Age did not last. In the myths of Quetzalcoatl, of Ra, and of An, of Kronos and of Saturn, the Golden Age does not just come to an end. It ends violently. And with the collapse of the Golden Age arrives the feared comet, the dragon of darkness, the fall into the cosmic night, the clash of the titans. the symbols of doomsday. The stars are set loose, falling into the void. The land is on fire, mountains split or crumble, rocks explode in flame, all the rivers and seas overflow and sweep across the earth, and the universe becomes a furnace burning everything. The old Norse poem Völuspá recalls the great catastrophe of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. When the terrifying wolf Fenrir, its jaws reaching from heaven to earth, brought forth a brood of howling wolves, and the sun became blood red and vanished, and the world slipped into a winter lasting for years. Icelandic, Aztec, and Babylonian, every ancient culture seems to have remembered an event called the end of the world. A worldwide tradition says that before a king ever ruled on earth, a prototype of kings arose in heaven. Father of kings, model of the good king, the universal monarch. The Aztec Quetzalcoatl, the Egyptian Ra, the Hindu Brahma. Every culture had its own universal monarch. It is said that the local king is responsible for the prosperity of the nation. In the reign of a good king, the earth flowers abundantly. Why is this? It is because the universal monarch, who set the standards of kingship, brought forth a remarkable condition in primeval times, an epoch called the Golden Age. Sunrise, to the star worshippers, a symbol of the cosmic dawn, when the universal monarch, the first sun god, shone above the world. The ancient Greeks called their sun god Helios. We assume they were referring to the sun we know, the sun that rises in the east and sets in the west. But in the earliest Greek manuscripts, Helios was the name of the planet Saturn. And the Greeks were not alone. The Babylonian Shamash, always translated as sun, was identified as Saturn. So also the Egyptian Ra, the Hindu Surya, the Latin Sol. But Saturn is a mere dot in a starry expanse. What could have caused the first star worshippers to celebrate that minute speck as the sun? Every day our sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But the archaic sun god Saturn did not rise or set. It did not move. Egyptian texts say of the sun god Atum, or Ra, the great god lives fixed in the middle of the sky. Surprisingly, the Babylonians used almost exactly the same language to describe the sun god Shamash in the stationary center of heaven. For an earthbound observer, there is only one motionless spot in the sky, the celestial pole. The stars we see are actually cutting a circle around the polar axis, close to the star Polaris. Of course, nothing would seem more irrational than an ancient sun god at this location. And yet, throughout the Near East, the universal monarch appears as a central sun called the axis and the pole of the world. To the Hindus, the sun god Surya occupied the place of supreme rest, the motionless site. So too the Greek Helios and the Aztec Quetzalcoatl. In their earliest expressions, these figures occupy the stationary cosmic center. There is an astonishing unity to this global tradition. Ancient Iranian astronomers identified the pole as Saturn's home, and so did the Neoplatonists of Greece. Roman poets remembered Saturn as the steadfast star, and Chinese astronomers recalled that, in the beginning, Saturn was the arch premier at the celestial pole. On every continent, archaeologists have uncovered curious drawings of an archaic sun. They do not look like our sun, yet they are strangely similar. And most mysterious of all is the great crescent encircling the sphere of this enigmatic sun. Early Egyptian drawings place crescent horns on the sun god Ra. In Mesopotamia, the crescent is repeatedly drawn wrapped around the sun god Shamash. A crescent horn turning in the sky. The image appears throughout the world. A vast crescent, unlike anything in our own sky today.
Humanity has hundreds of stories regarding the creation of the universe, the history of the planet, and the birth of mankind. Some of these stories are oral traditions and are handed down to subsequent generations in the form of songs and folklore. Other civilizations managed to record these tales in writing, forming the many religions and mythologies that we know today. Giving the subject of religion and mythology no more than a cursory glance, one may be forgiven for believing that these myths of history and creation are the misguided accounts of an ignorant and superstitious people. Truly, the stories of myth are easy to dismiss. Modern man has, for the most part, accepted the assertions of psychologists regarding these ancient tales. The gatekeepers of psychology.
The old Phoenician Canaanite worship of the planet Saturn was the most important god of all the ancient world, was the planet Saturn, and his symbol, long before the Hebrews were ever in Canaan, the symbol in Canaan for the planet Saturn was a six-pointed star. Today we call that star the Star of David. There was no Star of David. That's the Star of Saturn.
Jetzt möchte ich Sie noch fragen, wenn Sie in einer Organisation Großmeister sind, die sich Fraternitas Saturni nennt, haben Sie sich dann auch Gedanken gemacht, weshalb die Saturni heißt?
Weil sie eine Bruderschaft Gottes ist. Weil wir Gott, der ja keinen Namen sonst hat, es heißt, geheiligt werde dein Name. Das ist nur mit Saturnus.
Aber wo steht denn, gibt es historisch Belege, dass Gott Saturnus sein soll? Wieso nicht Jupiter?
Denn gedenke, dass du den Sabbat heiligst. Und Saturnus hat ja den Sabbat als seinen heiligsten Tag.
Und Sie glauben, das ist der einzige Grund, weshalb diese Organisation Saturni heißt?
Ich habe geglaubt früher. Nachdem ich alles Mögliche bei Ihnen gelesen hatte, kommen an alle möglichen Zweifel.
Und Sie haben niemals irgendwie gelesen oder gehört in der Loge unter Grosche, dass hinter Saturn auch etwas anderes stehen soll?
Nein, natürlich nicht.
Anderen Mitglieder, gab es da irgendwelche Mitglieder, die ganz fanatisch dabei gewesen sind?
Nö.
Das waren alles...
Es war so ein gesellschaftliches Unternehmen. Die einen gehen zum Kegelclub, die anderen gehen zur Loge. Naja, wir sind eben zur Loge gegangen und haben so ein bisschen mit dem J oder Saturn zu tun gehabt und fertig.
where you can't hold me, where you can't hold me, where you can't hold me. I'm too slippery. Well, I can't hold me. Well, I can't hold me. Lying circles on the sunlight, shine like diamonds on a dark night. Ain't no mercy in my smiling, only fangs and sweet beguiling. But if you can't hold me, well I can't hold me. Well I can't hold me. Where you can't hold me. I'm too slippery. I do no sleeping. Man, I'll get lonely. But you can touch me if you want to. But I got poison, just might bite you. Where you can slip and try to find me, hold your breath and flat deny me. You can't hold, makes no difference to my thinking. I'll be here when you start sinking.
this is one of the biggest lies that comes out of the Bible, because it's not a lie if you understand what it is, but it's a lie the way it was taught to you. You're told, for those of you that are churchgoers, and for you of those who aren't, you'll know what the word is. Sin, S-I-N. The word sin is supposed to mean that you're bad, and that because you're sinful, God can't have anything to do with you. Well, the word God refers to the planet Saturn. It does not refer to the Creator, who stands above the one that men have called God, which is the planet Saturn. The word sin comes from it's from physics. It's used in quantum physics. What is quantum physics? Quantum physics has a very old, ancient name, and that name is Kabbalah. Albert Einstein, when he was creating the atomic bomb or writing up the theory for it to work, used Kabbalah. Came up with E equals MC squared. You got what? Five symbols that equal volumes of information. But the word sin has nothing to do with evil. I'll show you how it's connected to evil. Okay? But it is not evil. You are not evil. You are not sinful. You are sinful in a way that's completely removed from the reality of what the word is. It does keep you away from the Creator, but it does not mean that you're evil. These are lies that have been perpetuated. People do not understand that the Old Testament is written in code. And I'm not talking about this bullshit Da Vinci Code crap. I'm talking about actual code as in, high-level physics. Okay? The word sin, S-I-N, comes from the word sign, S-I-N-E. Okay? Let me get a pen. Oh, I had some magic markers around here somewhere. I do not know where they went. Wait a minute. I think they're under here. Aha, here they are. Interestingly enough, we have a red and a blue pen. I will show you why the red and the blue is so very important. Sin. Let me just draw this real fast. Okay. Now let me hold this up. It's probably going to be backwards. Yeah, it is. See? Let me put it this way. Maybe you can read it. Okay. That's interesting. I wrote it on the other side. If you look at that, this is a sine wave. Yeah? It's a sine wave. The straight line that you're seeing, that's called linear time. That's going from your birth to your death. Okay? The wavy line, that's a sine wave. Okay? That's a sine wave. Bear with me. The word sine in physics is abbreviated as sin. Okay? Now, there is another wave, it's going to be in blue, that runs along the same line as time. Okay? And what that is it goes like this. Okay? And this one is called a cosine wave, as in cosigner. That's right where that comes from. That's a cosine because it rides the back. It's so tight to the other wave, it's called a cosine wave. Now, you see, you have red and blue, and they both are interacting with time. So, one is time, one is space. Okay? Those two together create time and space. Red and blue, which represents the planet Saturn. The time and space. So why is sin evil? Because sin is the abbreviation for sign, which represents time. And incidentally, the serpent in the garden is right here. Okay? That's the serpent. Okay? The serpent is time. Now I'm going to show you something else. Bear with me for a second. So this comes out here. almost there. And then this. Okay. And we'll take this. And we'll do this. And I'm going to show you where this ancient symbol came from. Okay? Ready? If we turn it on its end, this is where your caduceus comes from. That's time and space running along a linear, that's the cosine of the sine wave, running along the vertical line, which is sine or sin. Here we have the wings, and here we have the blue and the red that represents the planet Saturn. That's what your symbol is that you see, the caduceus. The single one is just a snake, which is it looks like an S. That's the serpent. Okay, so why do they say that we're sinful? They say that we're sinful, or that you're born of natural sin, because you're born into sine. You're not born into Seinfeld. That's something different. That's got Kramer and George. Well, you've seen it. You're born into sine. You're born into time. And when you're born into time, when you're born into sine, you're born into sin. Now, why does sin keeps you away from the Creator? Why? Because here, that's ruled by time, the circle, and space, the square. The Creator is timeless. There is no time where He exists. This thing that men call God is the God of infinity. So let's look at the word infinity. The word infinity. The word infinity. Okay? That's not the correct spelling, but I'm going to give it to you the way that... Infinity. Maybe it is correct spelling. So your infinity. Finity is time. So when you say, oh, I'm going to be with God for infinity, yes, if you want to stay here, you can be with Him for infinity. It's a loop. You go around and around and around. You have to arise above that and get to where there is no time. So when they say, oh, man's born of natural sin, you are born into the third dimension. And as the Bible says, the wages of sin is death. When you're born into the third dimension, you live in the third dimension, and as we all know, time, given enough of it, destroys everything. Okay? That's why in Revelations, the beast is Saturn, because it regulates time. Given enough of it, it will kill you, your friends, your pets, destroy, rust, break down everything in the third dimensional level. And death is always associated with sadness and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And that is why, it's interesting, because when you look, I forgot to bring this up, when you look at a sine wave written, okay, written in physics, it's red, just like it is here, okay? And because that's sin, and that's in reference to sine, which represents time, and the devil is what color? He's red. Because, see, they took a story of physics and they twisted it and it came up with a bullshit story that some broad, you know, running around in her birthday suit, you know, giggling and ate an apple she wasn't supposed to. The tree of life that they're referring to in Genesis is the Kabbalistic tree of life. And guess who's in charge of that? The planet Saturn. So nobody is born evil. Okay? Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that the two things that people want the most to live and love backwards? Here's love, and here's life. Okay? Here's love and here's life. Isn't it interesting that if you spell them backwards, they both spell evil? Nobody is born evil. Nobody's born into natural sin. Sorry, Christians. Like everything else, first of all, the Old Testament was never supposed to be in your possession. The Jews did not want that out because those stories are coded stories that are written in high physics. All the Old Testament is stories about reflections, light waves, atomic weights, dates, what else? Vibrations, mathematical codes that are what that thing up in the sky creates, that makes the reality that we live in. So for all intents and purposes, that thing is God to this planet, not to me. I believe in the guy that's above him. Problem is, we don't know what his name is. So that's why I believe in Jesus. It's the only guy in between me and the Creator. That thing that thing, what they call Yahweh, is really Saturn. Synergy. This is the continuation from my last video. I want you to look at this. This is how time works, okay? Let's watch the graph here. You see how it goes round and round? You see the green? Okay, you see that's the serpent that's in the Garden of Eden. Okay? You see it? You see how that's sine wave, see that? Okay, you see how that works? Okay, now we're going to move on. I want you to look at the equation, and this is going to explain to you why I know that this is bullshit out of the Bible, what they're talking about. The Bible is not bullshit, but with the way that they crafted the story and made you think of something else is. And on top of that, when you're trying to explain physics to a guy, you know, that doesn't understand physics, you have to use other means, and that's why they use the story of the Garden of Eden. So let's look. Look at the way it's written. First of all, the 4 colors. Red, yellow, blue, green. You see it? Okay, so I wasn't lying about that. Now look at how it's written. Okay, there's 3 axis points there. All right, which is what creates the cube. All right, but let's look at it. This is interesting. Why am I going to go? Why am I going to go to hell when I die? Look what's in parentheses. Cause I sin. Why are we going to hell when we die? Why? Look at the third one down. Why? Our sin. You see, they just crafted a story from physics, and they did that because back in the old days, like I said, in order to get the message across to somebody, you put it in a story form. Okay? This is what this is all about. There's no doubt in my mind. Let's go on to this. Here's the sine wave that I showed you yesterday. It's a sine wave and it's a cosine wave. Okay? If we look, you'll see that sine is written as sin. Okay? S-I-N-E. And it's in red. What color is the devil? He's red. Okay? Let's move on to the next picture. Here we have a woman with an hourglass. Yeah? Okay? She's got her arm resting on a skull, which represents death. The thing that's above her head is called Oribus. It's a snake biting its tail. Okay? That represents Saturn. Okay? All halos that you see represent Saturn. All circles, the earrings that you wear, women, those earrings are a representation of time, and it comes out of Babylonia. It represents Saturn. Same thing with your wedding ring. This is obviously a picture from a society called the Rosicrucians, which is, I guess they're kind of like Masons. That's why she's holding a rose. But the hourglass and the Oribus above her head, so this is basically telling you that Eve, okay, the story of Adam and Eve, it was time. That was time. It wasn't a serpent as in a snake. It was a serpent as far as time. A sine wave. Okay? Let's take a look at this picture. Okay? So let's look at this little thing here. Alright? You see it go around and around? You see the red colors? Red, yellow, blue, green? That's a time cube. But if we look at it, look how it's split into 4 sections. The circle is, right? Okay. Let's see where we've seen that before. There you go. There it is. You see it's on top of a church. It represents time and space. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It has nothing to do with saving your soul. It has everything to do with a business. The 503, it's a government code. Churches don't pay taxes because it's nothing more than a government installation. This is a picture I've had since 2007. I noticed something on it last night. But if we look at this, we see that it's 2 squares, right? They're offset from each other. That's what makes it 8-pointed star. It's really 2 squares. There's something about this picture that I just noticed last night. If you look at these, each one of these cubes has a little hourglass in it, like the old Windows 95. When you click on something, you see a little hourglass spinning. These things are time cubes. Okay, I'm not sure if they're part of the fractal code or if they're actually a time cube because they represent an entity that's stuck within it and he's waiting for his time to come out. I'm guessing by what I'm about to show you, that's what this is. Okay, and these squares, they're locked within this prison of these 2 squares. So here's the cube. And the guy's got fraud written underneath. Why? Because this cube is our reality. Okay, it's fraud. This is a fractal reality that we live in. This is not the original creation. We're living in a false reality. That's what that cube represents, at least in this picture. Here we see over here time and motion. Okay, so those are the things that are inside the reality of ours. Time and space, time, motion, whatever. Okay, this is a fractal. This is not the original creation. This is a part of it. It's a recreation of it, and it's being run by somebody other than who it was intended by. This is a spider. Why does it say light? Because the spider spins a web, and when you look at spider webs, they're not round. They're octagonal shape or hexagonal shape. And when you'll see there's a small hexagon, a bigger hexagon, or octagon, and it keeps going out. It's because it's a fractal. It's part of the original creation, but it's a recreation. But it's not the creation. So they're using a spider to hide the reality. They're using the spider as a natural way of explaining what it is, if you know what the spider is. In this case, it's spinning a web, and the next octagon outside the first one is bigger. And so what it is it's replicating. We are not in the original creation. We're living in a cube. Now, when we look at this, there's a bunch of these little guys. I showed this to you. There's an eye on top here. And just so I can try and get this across, just so you don't think that I'm making this stuff up. There are people that know that we're living in a false reality, and they keep us in this false reality by or through any means possible. Oh, like Queenie does, like trying to condemn us for, whatever reason, for the sake of just condemning and just for the sake of keeping people scared, is completely scared. Well, let's see who else understands what this symbol is. He's kind of famous. You might know him. He's in disguise right now. So here we see this is the Pope's hat. Well, that's interesting. It's the same design, and if we look around it, we have snakes intertwining. What are these? What is this? What do these snakes represent? Okay, so it's the same thing that came from the other guy that drew it, who belongs to another real big organization that's been around for a long time. So basically, we know that these guys, both of these guys, know what's going on here and what's keeping us trapped here. And this guy's wearing it right on his head, right in front of everybody. They know, and they like it. They're keeping us trapped here.
The Saturn machine is the idea that Jehovah, Yahweh, Saturn, Satan, or whatever name you give it, is actually what could be thought of as a machine or a tool physically located on the planet Saturn that is creating and manipulating this matrix mind-time prison on this planet. While this machine can be used for good or bad, the reptilians or archons have set it up so that nearly the only ones who understand or know how to use it are those who are deeply involved in Satanism or the Illuminati, who probably don't have the people of the planet's best interest at heart.
Thousands of years of programming, conditioning, and preparation. This isn't even a machine they can turn off, is it? That's right. This isn't even a machine they can...
In episode 22, Return of the Archons, the Enterprise crew are on a planet with a people almost completely void of emotion, worshipping a god named Landru.
I am Landru.
While prisoners, the people who work for Landru begin taking the minds out of the crew one by one. However, Spock notices something important.
Interesting, however. Their reaction to your defiance was remarkably similar to the reaction of a computer when fed insufficient or contradictory data.
Are you suggesting the logic is a mere computer? What is your theory, Mr. Spock?
This is a soulless society, Captain. It has no spirit, no spark. All is indeed peace and tranquility. Peace of the factory, tranquility of the machine. All parts working in unison.
So Kirk decides to take out Landru, whoever he is.
Let's have a look at the projector.
You probably saw this one coming, but in the end we find out that Landru is in fact just a big fakey machine. 35 called the Apple, Kirk and his crew are on a planet with a defense system that casts lightning bolts. Oop, there goes another red shirt. The crew find an indigenous people who call themselves the Feeders of Vol. Vol is their god and was mentioned in my previous video, for Vol has the head of a reptilian. The crew soon figure out that Vol is actually a machine.
Apparently our hypothesis is correct. There is no living being there. It's a machine, nothing more.
Anyways, Vol is bad, Vol is destroyed, and the people are freed. I also want to show you the last dialogue of this episode, which had quite an odd feel to it.
And in a manner of speaking, we have given the people of Val, the apple, the knowledge of good and evil, if you will, as a result of which they too have been driven out of paradise.
Are you casting me in the role of Satan?
All captains.
Is there anyone on this ship who even remotely looks like Satan?
I am not aware of anyone who fits that description, Captain.
Mr. Spock, thank you.
So what we have seen from these episodes I have shown, Trelane, Landru, Apollo, and Vol are all beings created by a large machine usually located underneath the planet, giving them godlike capabilities. I believe that these beings really represent Jehovah, Saturn, Satan, Yahweh, and whoever else, and the power they all represent is the Saturn machine. All of these episodes are only from the first half of the original Star Trek series. I may come back to Star Trek a bit later on, but there's a lot of other movies and TV shows I would like to cover in the meantime.
In other words, it's a common theme in my writing that a dark-haired girl shows up at the door of the protagonist and tells him that his world is delusional, that there's something false about it. Well, this did finally happen to me. I even knew that her hair would be black. I had an actual complete sense of what she would look like and what she would say. She did appear, she was a total stranger, and she did inform me of this fact, that some of my fictional works were in a literal sense true. I wrote out these dreams in novel after novel, story after story. To name two in which this prior ugly present obtained most clearly, I cite The Man in the High Castle and my 1974 novel about the U.S. as a police state, called Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. I'm going to be very candid with you. I wrote both novels based on fragmentary residual memories of such a horrid slave state world. People claim to remember past lives. I claim to remember a different, very different present life. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I'm willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality And the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
You will accept the love of Lucifer. You will kill people in mass. The police will wear the black uniform of Saturn. The police will wear the black uniform of Saturn. The police will wear the black uniform of Saturn.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind.
Yo, what is a hit record? How is it defined? Is it designed from jump to be a big record? Or is there a big check to be collected? As directed, add the record to rotation. Now it's playing, somebody paying, nobody saying, somebody manager, somebody agent, somebody label, on the payroll, from the cradle. All I ever wanted to do was rap, but that don't bring pesos, unless you make dough. Doing paid shows, and even that do not come by the caseloads, unless you a slave on somebody label. Major radio, major video, 50 city toe, hold the ticket so, how typical, yes cynical, they gotta keep you hush, just keep in touch with your publicist, she gon' tell you what to spit, and your A&R, he gon' help you lay your bars, politically correct or no check, welcome. It's funny how these rappers be thinking they're so hot, but they have no guap, they're my little robots. I am Mr. Machine, you and I will make a team, and we will get ourselves, I mean myself, a lot of cream. I'll get you pennies and you'll be making me dumb funds. In other words, I'll be porking you in your bum bum. You wanna get up out that ghetto that you come from? Well, make a decision and don't make it a dumb one. Think big, compromise your integrity, and I promise one day you'll become a celebrity. Trust me, I will never cross you like the letter T. Now do everything I tell you and just let it be. I get you features and production from the big shots, and you will be forever indebted if your shit flops. Commercialized, don't try and save hip-hop. Matter of fact, why don't you try sounding like Big Pop or Jay-Z? All the records fly up off the shelf. Just make sure that you sound like anybody but yourself. It's just the nature of the business, don't be mad at it. Now make it hit before I drop you like a bad habit.
Saturn, again, yeah, just bear with me, this is a good one. This is a theory for you, right? As we all know, that's a two-dimensional 3D cube on Saturn, okay? You can see the cube there. Now what is this cube? Yeah? What is this cube in an anti-clockwise direction on Saturn's North Pole? Well, got a theory. What if this is directly linked to one on Earth? And could it be in Antarctica? Now, let me put this up, just bear with me. We have a massive presence. Nearly every country in the world's down there doing something. And then I came across this, the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory. Okay, as we know, they're very big on cubes, worshipping this thing on Saturn, as we can see, the hexagon. Now, this is 1 kilometre wide, and they buried it so many kilometres under the ice in Antarctica. Okay, it's supposed to be this super telescope that's measuring neutrinos and stuff like that, but how do we really know that? Yeah, and also, is it in direct link with this thing on Saturn? Now bear with me, anybody seen the film Contact? Sorry, Contact. Right, now in the movie Contact, Jodie Foster is sent to another dimension, another time, through this thing. Okay? And now these three rings go in different directions, alternate directions. Say one goes that way, one goes that way, the other goes this way. Okay? So they're rotating in three separate directions. And what happens, she sits in the middle, and next thing you know, she's off to another dimension. Okay? Another planet, in another dimension, another time. Okay? Now, you might be thinking I'm a bit crazy, but I think there's more to it than meets the eye, right? Because I found lots of logos and news media outlets and everything that have this very thing. Okay, let's start with the BBC logo, 1955. Here we have the three rings. Okay, they're the rings of Saturn, so we know that there's three rings going alternate directions on the planet Saturn. So they know something. we've got all these cubes here. They changed the logo to cubes. Okay. Then we come across this. With me. Look at that. This is Red Giant software. There's 3 rings going alternate directions. See it? Just like the film Contact. And if that's not bad enough, we have the Kaiser Report. Now this is from RT News, okay? And I want to play this on, so I give you an idea that somebody somewhere knows something. Maybe they're trying to design a Stargate. I think these are Stargates, and it's directly linked to Earth, Saturn, okay? And played on its stick. Watch this. Watch the motion. See the motion behind. Watch. You see? Look at the rings going in different directions. It's like the film Contact. It's like the giant red logo. Red giant logo. This is no coincidence, guys. This is what they're working at. But my point is this. What is the cube on Saturn? Okay? What is that cube on Saturn? Could it be directly linked to something on Earth, yeah? Now, it's my belief, and a couple of other friends I've got belief, that the moon acts as some kind of filter, if you will, some kind of Earth towards, through this line of connection, communication we've got between Earth and Saturn. Yeah, you've seen what I'm getting at. Now look, this is in Antarctica again. They've designed these science labs down in Antarctica, and they're very big on the cubes. Just played on. Oh, big yellow cubes. We remember Katie, what's she called now? The singer who's married to the comedian. Katy Perry. She was in the MTV Awards wearing this big yellow cube on her head. I think there's symbology everywhere, but there's a definite connection between Saturn, Antarctica, and the cubes on Saturn and in the Earth. What about that? As above, so below.
Nur eins, Herr Rupp. Herr Rupp. Ich wäre Ihnen dankbar, wenn Sie Ihren Lesern gelegentlich den Unterschied zwischen einem Computer und unserem Simulationsmodell nahebringen würden. Es handelt sich um eine völlig neue Generation in der Computertechnologie.
Und wem nützt sie?
Uns allen, wenn es nach mir geht.
Ich interessiere mich wirklich sehr für Simulacron. Stimmt das, dass Sie damit eine künstliche Welt gebaut haben?
Welt ist ein bisschen übertrieben.
Wo ist der Verrückte?
Welcher Verrückte? Ich weiß gar nicht, was Sie meinen.
Stiller heißt der Mann.
Vergessen Sie alles, was Sie bisher erlebt haben.
Just see what the boys want. Tell them I sighed and tell them I cried. and tell them I died of the same.
Da ist das Ende dieser Welt wäre.
Poison. It's contaminated food.
Who says so?
The old man in the cave.
The old man in the cave.
We've survived, Major French. The rest of the world has died of radioactivity, strontium 90, plague. We survived.
Because of the old man.
That's right. Because of the old man.
He cues you in, huh? He tells you what's poisonous, what's radioactive, that whole bit.
As long as he's alive, we'll be alive.
All right, Goldsmith, you want to tell us about this? How do you open it?
I don't know. My knowledge, it's never been opened.
The old man lives inside, right? How does he live? How does he stay alive?
I don't know.
How do you know he's in there?
The old man in the cave warned us about this food dozens of times. He warned us.
Old man in the cave. The old man in the cave. Now hear this! There is no old man in the cave. He's alive. He's a concoction. Nobody's seen him, nobody's heard him, nobody knows who he is or where he's from. You made him up.
Please.
You cut him out of whole cloth.
Listen to me. There's no reason under the sun why this cave must be opened. Why you must see the old man. All you have to know is that he's kept us alive. He's let us survive. All the compassion that's left on this earth is in that cave.
Well, make him open the cave and see the old man now.
Open up that door! All right.
God. My dear God. It's a machine. It's a computer.